Hello and welcome to the World Triathlon Technical Official Education module on sustainability. My name is Doug Gray, in communications at World Triathlon. This is Non-Stanford.
Hi Doug, thanks for having me along today. As a bit of background, I was elected to the Environmental Sustainability Committee at the last Congress, and I'm really passionate about the work that they're doing because I've been fortunate enough to enjoy a really long career in triathlon, and I just want to ensure that future generations are afforded the same opportunities that I have been.
Great, yeah, and you know, this module is obviously very important because as well as LOCs now having the opportunity to achieve their gold standard in sustainability, it's obviously also down to World Triathlon as an organisation, which includes everyone who races an event, officiates at an event, works at an event, all coming together and taking their responsibilities to the planet seriously. So shall we get on with the presentation? So I think this slide, the image speaks for itself, really. The time is now. There's no more burying the head in the sand. That you know, the science is clear on this, and action absolutely has to be taken.
Yeah, definitely. You know, if you look at some facts from 2020, statistics really are quite shocking and will hopefully, you know, wake people up. As a bit of a snapshot, 2020 was in the top 3 hottest years ever recorded, and that's despite it being El Nino. Greenland ice sheets passed the point of no return. They were losing 1 million metric tons per minute in 2020. I think we're all very aware of the wildfires in both Australia and California that caused so much devastation. Another shocking statistic was the record number of hurricanes in the Atlantic. They had over 30. And Amazon deforestation surged to a 12-year high, which was up 9.5% from the previous year. And, you know, all of this happened despite COVID. CO2 surged despite all the lockdowns and sort of all the drops that we saw in uses of vehicles and so forth. So some really shocking statistics from 2020.
On to the next slide. The impacts on our sport as a whole are many. Impact on the weather, for example, global warming, severe weather has many impacts, but directly, obviously, on things like, can a triathlon race be staged at, you know, there are temperature limits for safety of athletes in the water. The rising of temperatures of the water is a sort of direct impact on that, obviously. Air pollution, respiratory problems. An athlete relies on their lungs, and as we all do specifically. So yeah, decreasing the amount we use cars, increasing, I mean, triathletes are self-powered. This isn't Formula One or anything like that, but at the same time, obviously traveling the globe is an inevitable part of being an athlete, is it not, Non?
Yeah, definitely, and it's something that you know, I think we all have to be more conscious of is the amount that we travel. As athletes, we travel away to training camps. We travel, you know, constantly traversing the globe to travel to races, and you know, it's probably not something that we can continue doing because the impact is huge. So you know, all these things are going to have to change and change in the way in which our sport is run and the season is conducted, and you know, so hopefully we can sustain the future of the triathlon, so that, you know, it will continue for many years to come, but we just need to be really conscious of what we're doing now to make sure that future continues.
Yeah, and I think probably everybody watching would have had some experience of at least one or two of these elements that you see on the screen now as well. So yeah, direct impact on our everyday as well as our sport.
Yes, we've got this quote here from Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, and he's made it explicitly clear how important it is that we eradicate our carbon footprint by 2030, and followed it up with this profound piece saying, making peace with nature is the defining task of the 21st century. It must be the top priority for everyone, everywhere. And I think that's just quite profound in sort of sending home the message of how important this is, not for any one individual, but for us all as a collective, as humans, but as participants in this sport.
Okay, so we obviously can't see sport as the victim here, given that we are also a huge net contributor through greenhouse gas, like Non was saying, travel, the energy use around the events, single-use plastics, which, you know, fortunately we are now getting on top of. And yeah, there's no doubt that the people, the organisations and the people involved in sport are extremely well placed to be able to instigate all the change that is required.
Yeah, definitely. You know, as an athlete, and you know, the athletes of our sport, we're quite uniquely positioned. You know, with influence, power of influence. You know, especially on social media platforms. You know, we have to really utilize our positions to promote greater environmental responsibility. And if that's just through spreading messages, or encouraging people to partake in better practices. One thing that, you know, I've been quite conscious of doing is checking in with the brands that I work with to make sure that they're doing everything possible, you know, to be more environmentally conscious and to do, you know, more environmentally sustainable practices. And also as athletes, you know, it is difficult because a lot of the products, the nutritional products that we use, come in plastic packaging. And, you know, we do travel a lot, as I said before. So it's just being more and more conscious of those things and looking at ways that we can, you know, reduce those effects and those footprints as much as possible, really. And like I said earlier, it's going to be a global effort from everybody, not just athletes, but from all of us involved to make sure that our impact on this planet is as small as possible, really.
Behind athletes and behind spectators, I guess, and the LOC, one of the larger groups of people at these events is the TOs, and collectively it's a culture, like as it is with the athletes, collectively a culture of responsibility that can be sort of fostered and shared and talked about, and best practices you know, taken on board. And there's I think to see this as an opportunity of adopting different practices in the way that we all are at these events is how we should see this. Hope. I mean, that's about as clear a message as you can have on a screen, I suppose. And what I think it represents really is, without it, you know, there's no need to feel that one person's effort is insignificant, that, you know, well, what difference will my small changes make? Because as we all know, that is the very definition of collective power, and it's together that we can affect these changes. The worst attitude you could have is that it's too late already, or, you know, what difference will I make? So World Triathlon is already a member of the Sport for Climate Action framework, which has been led by the IOC. In line with the Paris Climate Conference, the objectives were laid out. The first one, reducing carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. And that is a date that is rapidly coming up on the horizon. And then net zero by 2050 equally isn't a very long way off now, and also makes you think about, you know, the second half of this century in a way, and where we will be, you know, by 2075 even. And, you know, if these sorts of changes aren't met now. And the other organisation, Non?
Yeah, the other organisation that World Triathlon have joined forces with is Clean Seas Initiative. That was back in 2018, and it strongly advocates event organisers to combat marine plastic pollution, because we obviously know how important the seas and the oceans are to our sport. We use them a lot, and it's really important that we help keep them clean and keep them free of pollution as much as we possibly can.
Back to World Triathlon then, these are the 9 elements that form the backbone of the rebrand that we had at the end of 2020. All 9 obviously intricately tied to our health and the planet's health, and the future of our sport, really. So yeah, the health of all of these and the ability to do them and to have them operating as we want is what the ultimate goal is for all of this, really. And so all of those points lead us into the new strategic plan up to 2025. They underline our responsibilities to implement new standards across the sport, across our events, to make us more eco-friendly. And
yeah, you know, I am sitting on the Environmental and Sustainability Committee, and it's a committee made up of experts from around the world in both environmental sciences and sustainability sciences and practices. And you know, it's a collection of great minds, but also people that are really passionate about making sure that triathlon is able to hit its targets of reducing its carbon footprint over the next few years. And it's really exciting to be a part of. And I think I personally am really proud that World Triathlon are taking all these steps to make sure that what we can do as an organisation is the best that we can possibly do to help global warming and climate change, and to ensure the best possible future, not just for our sport but for this planet as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing, isn't it? I think it's about being excited about the changes that we can make, and the cultural changes that we can make that can help us achieve this. And these are big targets, and these are things that we've not done before. You know, the measuring of the carbon footprint is very new, but in a way it sets a very clear challenge to what needs to be done, and by putting figures on it that we can then refer back to and challenge ourselves to meet, it brings it all into a new reality of something that is tangible and achievable, and will, as it says here, you know, all event agreements will need these environmental requirements by 2025. So yeah, undoubtedly that will push us into the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can sometimes feel daunting when you're sat here and it's all stretching out in front of you. But I think if we all play the small part that we can, from as athletes, as TOs, as event organisers, it will make this plan a reality. And with all our small contributions, you know, we can really all make a big difference. And I think that's what's really important to remember.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Non, for presenting.
Thank you very much for having me and listening to what I have to say.
And there'll be more communications going out on World Triathlon sustainability efforts and those of all our LOCs in the coming weeks and months. And obviously all of your input is vital in that as well. So thank you, and let's hit those targets.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.